Hi, my name is Victor, and I'm from Brazil. And this is the very first time that I have decided to actually make a YouTube video where I would tell people a few basic facts about the Portuguese language as it is spoken in Brazil. And I'm trying to have an approach here where instead of just giving you vocabulary or sentences that are going to memorize or just tell you about the language, I'm trying to do a mixture of that. So I hope that you're going to learn quite a bit about Portuguese today. And I'm trying to do an approach where I analyze the language in a way that I think you're going to be able to put the pieces together on your own and learn faster. At the moment, as you can see on the PDF file that I'm showing right now, and you can download the PDF file at this address here. So I suggest that before we actually start, you just go to this address. You're going to see the full PDF file for the lesson, which is this. And then you can print it out so you can follow along, because here I'm not going to be able to show the whole screen at the same time. So I suggest you actually go ahead and print it. So at the moment, as you can see, I'm a PhD student in Applied Linguistics and Technology at Iowa State University, and I deal with technology that can help people learn foreign languages better and faster, and how we can better use technology to that goal, towards that goal. So that's what I'm doing here right now. So for those of you who are interested in learning Brazilian Portuguese, here are a few facts about the language. Fact number one is that all the nouns are either masculine or feminine in Portuguese. So in English you have the word dog, you have the word door, you have the word table, and these are neither feminine or masculine. They don't have a gender, as we call in linguistics. You just say the door, the table, the dog. Now in Portuguese, every single noun, all nouns, they are either masculine and feminine. And this has some implications for the language as a whole that we're going to discuss further on. Now, adjectives, as we can see in fact 2, they must agree with nouns, and I'm going to give you quite a few examples of how this works in Brazilian Portuguese and European Portuguese as well. And you're going to be able to put sentences together on your own in a few minutes. So because all the nouns are masculine or feminine, adjectives, for example, beautiful, hot, nice, they must agree with nouns, which means that if the noun is masculine, the adjective that we're going to use with that noun also must be masculine. So in English you say beautiful house, beautiful dog, but in Portuguese dog is masculine and house is feminine. So the adjective that goes along with dog, for example, is going to be masculine, and the adjective that goes along with house is going to be feminine. We'll be looking at quite a few cases. The third fact that I want to touch on today, and I'm going to be having quite I'm going to have other lessons as well if I notice that enough people are interested in this, is that articles must agree with the nouns as well. Now, if the noun is masculine, that means that the adjective that comes with the noun is also going to be masculine, and the article, be it the definite article, the, or the indefinite article, an, that must have the same gender as the noun. So if it's a masculine noun, the article is also going to be in its masculine form. Now, what I have done in this lesson is I have selected a few basic words, and I think this is going to be quite useful for people that have no idea about Brazilian Portuguese at all. So you're going to leave this lesson knowing quite a few words, adjectives, verbs, and quite a few sentences. And you're also going to be able to make sentences on your own using these words and new words that you might come across. So the words we're going to be using in this lesson are gato, that means cat, and it's masculine, right? Gato. And in Portuguese, the way you can usually tell whether a noun is masculine or feminine is by the ending of the word. So you can see that I have underlined the O here. So usually if the word ends in an O, I would say in 90% of the cases it's going to be a masculine noun. So the word for cat is gato. The word for girl is menina, and of course this is feminine, as we can see not only by the meaning, which is girl, but also because it ends in an A. Mesa, Mesa means table and it's feminine. As we can see, this noun mesa ends with an A. The next word is relógio. Relógio. It's a watch. And what do you think it is? Masculine or feminine? Well, it's masculine because it ends in an O. So it's a masculine noun in Portuguese. The word for cow in Portuguese is vaca. And of course, a cow is a female word even in English, but because it ends in an A, you also know that it's feminine in Portuguese. And our last noun for the day is the word for cake, which is pronounced as bolo. Bolo in Portuguese, and it's a masculine noun. As you might have noticed from my pronunciation, even though in Brazilian Portuguese these words finish with an O, when we actually pronounce them in our day-to-day, we don't say gato, but we say gato. And in future lessons, when we go deeper into the language, I'm going to explain why. But basically, instead of gato, we say gato. Instead of bolo, we say bolo. So next time you see a noun in Brazilian Portuguese that ends with an O, you want this U sound at the end probably. You're going to be better off having that most of the time. Now, as fact 2 says, adjectives must agree with the nouns in gender. So for masculine nouns, we're going to use masculine adjectives. For feminine nouns, we're going to use feminine adjectives. So here I have a list of adjectives we're going to be using. So the adjective for fast is rápido in its masculine form, as we can see by the O at the end. And the feminine form of fast is rápida, right? So here I'm going to add the word feminine for rápida, okay? So we're going to see a few sentences, but if you want to say a fast cat, since cat in this case is masculine because it ends in an O, it's a female cat, we're going to say gato rápido. See, they have the same ending, O. So it's a fast male cat, gato rápido. Now, if we wanted to say a fast female cat, how do you think that would be? I'll give you 4 seconds. So if a fast masculine cat is gato rápido, a fast female cat would be gata rápida. Okay, but we're going to study that further on. The next adjective is the word for heavy, right? So if we're going to use heavy for a masculine noun, we're going to say, we're going to say pesado. We can see the O at the end, so that's the masculine version of the word heavy, pesado. And if we use heavy with a feminine noun, we're going to say pesada. Okay, I think you're getting the hang of this, so I'm going to move a little bit faster. The word for expensive, the adjective for expensive, in its male form, masculine form, would be caro. Caro. So an expensive watch would be, think about it before I give you the answer, relógio caro. Because relógio ends in O, so it's masculine, so we're going to use the masculine adjective, relógio caro. But if I want to say expensive cow, I'm going to say vaca cara, okay? As you might have noticed in Portuguese, it's the very opposite of English, and we use first the noun, so we say relógio caro, and then the adjective. In English, you would have the adjective first, so you would say expensive watch. In Portuguese, what we say basically is watch expensive. The next adjective we have is the word for tasty. The adjective for tasty, when you're describing food, for example, the masculine version of the noun is gostoso, and the feminine version is gostosa. So you can see the pattern. The adjectives are going to end in A if they're feminine, and they're going to end in O if they're masculine. Most of the time. This applies to maybe 85% of the adjectives, but that's what we're looking at today, and this will get you a long way if you know this rule. The last adjective we're going to be using is white. So if it's a masculine thing you're describing and it's white, you're going to say branco. Notice the O at the end here. And if it's a feminine noun you're describing and saying it's white, you're going to say branca. So a white cow would be vaca branca, right? But a white masculine cat, a white male cat, would be gato branco. That's great. Okay, so in Portuguese, I'm going to give you 3 verbs that we might use for this lesson, just so by the end of it, you have these 6 nouns that you know, right? You have these 5 adjectives, and you have 3 verbs that are quite used. The first verb is to eat. We say comer. I'll repeat, comer, comer, right? The verb to run is correr, correr. And the verb to love is amar, amar, right? I'm going to add one more verb, which is to smile, to smile, right? And I'm going to use the same that I'm using here. So basically in Portuguese, there are 3 endings to verbs, right? In English, the infinitive is shown by using to before the verb. But in Portuguese, you know that the verb is in the infinitive form when it ends in an R, okay? So you have comer, correr, amar, sorrir. All the verbs in the infinitive form, 100% of them, are going to end with an R. And in Portuguese, there's 3 different conjugations for verbs, 3 different ways in which verbs can be conjugated. And we have what we call the first group, which are verbs that end in AR, like to love. The second group is made up of verbs that end up in ER, such as to run, correr, and to eat, comer. That's the second group, they end in ER. And we have the third and last group, which end in IR, to smile. Now, they have a similar conjugational pattern, but they vary. And it's important that you know how the infinitive works, if it's AR, ER, or IR, because then if you know that, it's easier for you to conjugate the verb in the present, in the past. They pretty much follow a regular pattern, and we're going to discuss this further on. The personal pronouns in Portuguese, and this is the very last thing I'll tell you today, and then we're going to do some quick exercises. The word for I, the pronoun for I, is eu, eu. For you, singular, is você, você. There is some dialectal differences in terms of you in Brazil, but the most standard form, the one that most people use, is this one I'm showing to you here. So that's what you're going to hear in São Paulo, that's what you're going to hear in Belo Horizonte, and some other big cities in the country. The word for he is ele, ele. So if you have an ear, let's say for languages, or even if you don't, you might have realized that I don't pronounce ele, but I pronounce ele. So exactly like the O at the end of a word, which is pronounced as a U sound, so I say branco instead of branco, the E letter at the end of a word is not pronounced E, but E instead. So I say ele and not ele.